Okay, so chapter 1. When I teach this class in person, I like to just show these slides and talk about them. Statistics is just about getting a bunch of numbers and then understanding the world better using those numbers. Now, of course, it's more complicated than that, but that's kind of the simple version of it. I'm always curious about people, and I use Google Forms to gather data about my students since I have a captive audience with my class. Of course, I'm curious about all sorts of other people too. I'm just not surveying them. After you gather your data, you need to organize it, and then you can summarize and present that data, and we'll learn about that in chapter 2. So statistics is just the study of data. And we will analyze and interpret that data, and we're going to go way deeper than you probably ever thought we would. We sometimes just describe the data with graphs and numbers, and inferential statistics goes a little further. It says, well, we can't study everyone, so let's just study a sample, and then we can predict what the larger population is based on this sample. And you can imagine that if we don't do this process correctly, we could draw some incorrect conclusions about the larger population. Again, we'll go very deep into this further on in the course. So here's some data from a question: how many siblings do you have? If you didn't take that survey, please take it as soon as possible. So these are the responses from earlier in the survey. I actually have a lot more data now, but this is a subset of my data. And I will also caution you that I'm not a professional researcher, so we're just doing this kind of informally. These are the answers that I got. And as you can see, the numbers are in just every which order. This is the order in which I gathered the data. And then on Google Sheets, you can highlight that column and select data, sort by, and then tell it to sort by column E, because this question is in column E of my spreadsheet. And so now we can see how many people said 0, a bunch of people said 1, and so on. And we're going to use the fact that this is organized to then create a frequency table. So 2 people said they have no siblings. 14 people said they have 1 sibling. And that's a little hard to count. 10 people said they had 2, and so on. Notice that the 5 or more slot is missing, but we have a total of 40 responses, so we could figure that out. Qualitative data is either a category or a descriptor word. Quantitative data gives us a number. And that number could be discrete, meaning it has to be a whole number, like how many children or how many siblings. It's either going to be 0 or 1 or 2 or 3. But then if we measure time or distance or weight or age, we might have decimals. And so that data is continuous. So sometimes we say the discrete is when we count and continuous is when we measure. So these are the types of data that we can have. So a variable, I know you think that a variable is like X or Y or Z, but it's a characteristic of interest for each person or thing in a population. So list some numerical variables in the big survey. Our big survey is, well, this is categorical. How many minutes did it take you? That's numerical. Probably everybody's going to answer with a whole number, but if you were super precise, you might say 12.7 minutes. Number of credits, that's going to be discrete. Nobody has a half credit that I know of. Siblings will be discrete. Your age at your first smartphone could be continuous. This could be a decimal, although most people probably won't answer that way. And so on. So each of these generates a certain type of data. So this must have come from a survey question that said, are you a freshman, sophomore, junior, or senior? Even though our frequency table might tell us how many of each we had, the data itself is still qualitative or categorical. It is not quantitative because the answer to the survey question was not a number. A mean is an average, and we can only average numerical data. So if I asked 4 people their heights, we could come up with the average height for those students. When we ask categorical data, we can't find an average. So if I said freshman, sophomore, junior, senior, which are you? There's not going to be an average. But I could answer with a proportion. So here I asked people if they were right or left-handed, and I could come up with the percentage or ratio of people that were right-handed or left-handed. So we often end up generating a percentage for categorical data. And now I'd like you to go and complete your first 2 pages of Chapter 1 activity.